over 250 pounds when he died at the age of 99, 2 weeks before my father's bar mitzvah. "I used to be tall," was one of his jokes in old age. He must have been a giant in his youth, and Uncle Joe spent his childhood trying to shoot over him. Our family came to the States from Bavaria just before the First World War. Basketball has always been a ghetto game, but in its early days, the ghettos were Jewish, and many of the stars were Jews. The Markovitzes worked their way up in the usual fashion. My grandfather was conceived in Munich and born on the Lower East Side in New York. As a young man, he entered into his cousin's grocery business and helped to expand it into a franchise. He moved to Middletown with his family to set up the new head office and commuted 2 hours each way to Manhattan 3 nights a week to get his law degree from Columbia. The house my father grew up in was prosperous, middle class, but he used to boast that he had never read a book out of school till he got to college. He spent his afternoons at the ballpark. "Markovits," his high school coach once told him, "you may be slow, but you sure are weak." But he had a sharp eye and quick hands. These seemed to me, when I was a boy, just 2 of the instruments of his general authority. I was the son who had inherited his passion for sport, but I had also inherited something of my great-grandfather's height and a little of Uncle Joe's athleticism. We used to play every kind of game together: basketball, tennis, pool, and spent much of my rather friendless freshman year hunched over a miniature ping-pong table no bigger than 1 foot by 2 foot every day after school. My father has a great deal of patience, but he doesn't play games to relax. By the time I was 12 or 13, we could test ourselves against each other without holding back. The family fortunes followed the usual trajectory. The grandson of an immigrant, the son of a lawyer, my father had become an academic. His own son wanted to be a writer. The house I grew up in was full of books. We traveled to Germany every summer, where my mother was born and raised, and he brought back with him antiques and rugs that filled our sunny house in Texas. There was a big backyard, and in a far corner of it, he built a court for his kids to play on. I don't suppose I've ever been happier anywhere than on that court. But something had happened between my childhood and his, and the difference wasn't only the money we grew up with. Basketball had been his excuse for getting out of the house. It was mine for staying put. The game had changed, too. There were no Jewish stars anymore, and blacks had taken their place in the neighborhoods and the ballparks where they lived and played. Half of the kids I went to school with were black, fewer in the honors classes, more on the basketball team. The court was one of the rare places we hung out together, but even there, the diffidence of what you might call my class sense got in the way. For example, it had never occurred to me to dunk a basketball. It hurts, that's the first thing you learn, until the inside joints of your fingers grow calluses, preserving under the skin a few pixels of blood. My mother, an old socialist, remarked when she noticed them, "With hands like that, you'll survive the revolution." Not that it helped much on court. On Friday nights during my high school years, my father followed the team bus around Texas to watch me, to places with names like Del Valle and Copperas Cove that flew Confederate flags outside the school gym. He sat in the stands with the other fathers, while I sat on the bench on top of my hands to warm them up. I was scared the coach might put me in the game. I suppose a lot of parents have a sense of what their children are capable of in the confidence of solitude. We measure up one way in the world and another way in their love, and the difference must be painful for them to observe. "Do you want me to talk to the coach?" he asked me once on the car ride home. Sometimes I traveled back with him rather than on the team bus. "Please don't talk to the coach," I said, but he persisted.